What up, y'all? Welcome to Straight to the Bag, the show that helps fighters secure financial freedom. And, every episode we're just bringing y'all some free game on something. And today I think I have a big one because a lot of people are in a bad position, and this is like personal debt or even auto loan debt or a mortgage debt or whatever. And right now I might be in a bad spot. And I think I have someone today that can help y'all out a lot. So go ahead and introduce yourself, bro. And I guess just tell them what's been going on for the past year for you.
Yeah. Thanks, man. First and foremost, thanks for inviting me over to this podcast.
Of course.
Feel humbled and honored. I like what you're doing here. I think the content that you're providing is going to help a lot of people. So if you guys haven't checked out the last few episodes, definitely got to check that out because I think it's going to help out a lot of people. But my name is Kirvy Tongcua. I'm currently an operations manager at my current company. I'm also a student for Drew. I trained with him in Muay Thai for the last couple of years. Also a student in general, just life in general.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
Kind of just moving through the motions and learning along the way, just like everybody.
So what does the operations manager do?
So in general, I mean, that's just a title, right?
Okay.
Really, the main job that I do is I make sure I oversee, multiple different teams, make sure that everything is functioning operationally, and that's where the title essentially comes from.
Okay.
So everything that, boils down to staffing, budgeting, making sure that, processes are in place, things are compliant, etc. You're essentially making sure that everything is moving according to, how the company needs to move, forward.
So you worked your way up in this company, or you started there?
Oh, yeah. I actually started off in this company almost 10 years ago. Started from the bottom. Yep.
Okay.
So
what's the bottom look like?
The bottom is not even hired in. I'm talking temp.
Okay.
I came in as a temporary agent.
How much you getting paid as a temp worker?
Probably it was around, I want to say it was $10.50 an hour, I think, when I first came in as a temp.
Yeah.
And it was a funny story because I technically, I don't think I was supposed to be hired in because I started off as a guy that was going to be answering phone calls. So like a call center rep.
Yeah.
So
what did you really do then?
I'm sorry?
What did you really do instead of that then?
Well, I still did that.
Okay.
But I think they were hiring Spanish reps.
Oh.
And I think they thought I was Spanish because I put bilingual in my application, which funny. I am.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
Filipino. So when they had asked, am I bilingual? I said, yeah. So they went in, and I went in that a training classroom, and it was a classroom full of Spanish people.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it was hilarious. So I mean, maybe it was a draw of the luck. I mean, maybe it was meant to be, but came in this company as a temp from the bottom, and worked my way up throughout the years, and really just grinded it out.
Okay, so you said almost 10 years, or was it 10 years ago?
It would be 10 years as of 2022.
2022, okay,
Yeah.
So we're almost there.
We're basically
So, 2012, you got hired there?
Yep,
okay.
Exactly, yeah.
So what were you doing in 2012?
So prior to me coming onto this company, I was a waiter. That was technically my second job. My first job, I was a dish boy at working on Ohio State campus.
Okay.
So I would be the guy in the back where students would get their food in a dormitory. They'd put their dirty dishes in a conveyor belt, and that conveyor belt would lead to somebody in the back, and that guy was me.
Oh, that was you.
That was me getting all the food, all the nasty stuff in the back. Yeah.
Okay. So how was that? Like everything was good starting out? This is what, you were 18?
So at that time, I was actually a senior in high school. So that was when I first got that was my very first job.
Like real job.
My first real job making money. I always wanted to kind of make my own money. Obviously, around that age, I think I was 15 and a half, turning 16. And if I remember correctly, you're legally able to work around 15 and a half in the state of Ohio, right? So I was like, as soon as I turn 15 and a half, I'm going to get a job.
And that's dope.
It's exactly what I did. Worked there as this dish boy. And then sometimes I would switch different roles. Like I would be the busser where you bus tables for students, or you'd be the lunch lady, essentially putting food on people's plates. Yeah. So I started that when I was about 15 and a half, 16 years old.
Dang, that's dope. So how long did you work there?
I only worked there a year, maybe a year and some change. I actually got laid off because it was a temp job. I think it was one of those seasonal things where, we were contracted to just work for whatever campus needed. There's jobs to fill everywhere on campus. And, I got put on with that job, and I think I was only making, it was minimum wage at the time.
Yeah.
And I want to say at the time, it was $7.25 an hour.
Dang.
Yeah, $7.25 an hour. But for being 15 and a half, 16,
yeah, you don't
never
need that
making
much
money, never touched money, like as far as making your own, outside of what your parents could give you, which wasn't any at all. It was great.
Yeah.
My first check, I remember my first check.
How much was that?
$300 and something, man.
You're rich. Huh?
Oh, dude, balling. I went to Best Buy and bought an iPod for my first check because everybody had an iPod at that time, right? Like I didn't have anything. So $300 and something working. I was only working maybe 5 hours, 5 days a week.
So like a little over like 25 hours a week.
Yeah, something like that. But I was still in high school too. So I would go right after school, work for like 5 hours, come back home.
Yeah, that's some work for real.
Yeah, and I just remember my first check being 300 and some change. And I think in the beginning, I did not, I didn't really work 5 days a week. So it was maybe 3 times a week. And I kind of worked my way up to doing that.
So after high school, wait, what year did you graduate?
2011.
2011. Yep. Okay, so you graduate, and you're doing what after high school?
So after high school, I did what most kids get told to do, which is go to college.
I'm sure a lot of kids can relate.
Yep. And so growing up, my mom had always aspired for my sister and I to go to college and make sure that we're getting our education. We grew up in a household where education was real valued. My mom's profession throughout her life was a teacher, so she heavily instilled that in us to make sure we're getting our education. Yeah. So I went to Ohio State right after high school.
So did you know what you wanted to do when you went to Ohio State though, or you just were like, yeah, I just went because I'm going because my mom told me to go?
I thought I knew what I was doing, so I did like what my mom wanted me to be, which was be a doctor, be a nurse, or whatever it was, right? And not to try and be stereotypical, but a lot of Filipinos are nurses, so she felt like that would be like a good path to be in or whatever. So I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. So I went in there, went to Ohio State, and mind you, my mentality at this time, I felt like I could conquer the world because, in high school, I was getting really good grades. Around this time, I had my first job, making quote unquote money. Yeah. I started driving, and when you're I was stepping into college actually at the age of 17. So I graduated relatively younger than what most people will go into. All right. So when you're 17, stepping in a college campus that huge, I went to main campus.
Okay. So you went from high school straight to OSU. Yeah. Okay. And were you always good at school? Yeah. Came easy to you?
I would say, I wouldn't say it came easy. I felt like it just came natural. I don't know if that's the same thing.
Well, I mean, okay, I know what you mean. Why do you think that there was any reason like why it came natural to you? Like based off of like what you did every day? Were you like out kicking it with your friends and you could just get A's easily? You didn't have to study for tests, or were you like always it was just normal for you to study and work hard?
I think the biggest driver behind me being good in school was the fact that once I set my mind into something that I felt needed to be completed, I will continue doing it until it's done. I never stopped. So whether that's studying for a test or getting a piece of paper, at the time, you had to fill out a piece of paper and turn in physical homework to a teacher. Nowadays, it's digital and all that. Yeah. But if I see a piece of paper that has 10 questions on it, I'm not going to stop doing that piece of paper until I get to question number 10 and turning it in.
I love that. That's I don't want that one to go over people's heads. Like if you're taking notes and you're just wondering kind of like qualities of someone that is driven or hardworking, whatever you kind of see it from the outside as, I think that's a big one, because that's actually exactly how I am. When that's why I would do very good in like math class, because math class used to be like when you're in grade school and stuff, it's like just a list of problems.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just like, oh, this is like, it's like telling me like, it's like betting that I won't complete it or something. And then I might even put a time on myself. I'd be like, all right, well, class ends in 20 minutes. I'm gonna finish this entire piece of paper. Like, that's just how, but I know what you mean.
Yeah. And so, yeah, just going back to that, being good in school, in my opinion, for me at least, it was just making sure you complete what you set your mind into, right? Obviously, that's one part of it. It's not just completion, because you can complete something but not do it the right way. So that's the second piece of it.
That is true.
You got to do it the right way. So let's say, using that analogy of that question, you got a piece of paper, you got 10 questions. Yeah, you're trying to get to question number 10, but if you get stuck at question number 4, right? Go look up how to get it done. Now, if you get stuck on it, there's different strategies that you can implement, skip over it, come back to it, whatever you got to do. Use your resources, make sure you understand, you're not just doing it just to get it done.
Were you born with that like integrity, or like was your mom a super honest person like that, and she just told you had to be like that, or why do you think you're like that?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. Kind of her kind of instilling to us how important school is. I think with my mom, she raised my sister and I by herself for most of her life. So, my biological father passed when I was 4 years old. So she had raised my sister and I by herself. Born and raised in the Philippines up until I was 8 years old. So we were immigrants coming in here. Came in 2002 with pretty much nothing.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah, and so with that being said, I think with us coming here, she kind of instilled make sure you're going to school. Really, that's it. She made it seem like that was going to be the only path you're going to make it out.
You're like, I'm not asking questions. I'm telling you what you got to do.
Yeah, like and we didn't know any better. I mean, you're 8 years old. I mean, if your mom is telling you that you're in a whole new country, you barely know how to speak the language. You think, that she's probably right. This is, and you're going to just listen to it because you're a kid. You don't know any better.
Right, of course.
And you're in a very uncomfortable situation too, because you're going to school with kids that know how to speak English or whatever, and you're just...
You didn't know how to speak any English.
I had to learn along the way. So when I first came, I would say I probably knew maybe like 25% of the language.
That's tough.
That. So like, I didn't start really flowing sentences, until like probably a year of living in the U.S. So going into like 03 or something like that. Okay. So I learned pretty fast relatively, because, I mean, I was, when you're going to school with everyone speaking English or whatever, and you're still young, your mind can still mold.
I got you.
Yeah.
So graduate high school. How was high school? You did good in high school, or?
Yeah, I would say so.
What kind of kid were you?
What do you mean? In high school?
What kind of like student were you?
So as a student, I was everything that I mentioned earlier. I mean, I was focused as a student. Right?
All through high school though.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think not just high school, middle school, and ever since I stepped into the United States, I think it was just because of the new environment.
You realized that this wasn't a life that was like, you didn't take it for granted, I guess.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Okay.
Coming in, I think I just vaguely recall when I was in the Philippines, I really didn't care about school.
You remember life in the Philippines and stuff like that?
Oh yeah.
Because you were like, you were 8 when you came here?
I was 8 when I came here. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a third world country, man. So you get used to third world stuff. You don't know any better. And then you start seeing stuff that's better. And I remember.
Oh, and you're like, wow, this is amazing.
Oh man, I remember landing in the U.S. and I saw a sliding door open. I mean, we don't have that stuff, and I was tripping. And I saw a camera, and you could see yourself. Yeah. When you're walking in the store, I thought that was high tech, man. It was nuts. But coming in the U.S. and seeing, families have their own cars. We ride public transportation in the Philippines. No one really owns their own personal car unless you got money like that. At least back in the day, So, yeah. When I seen my peers being in 4th grade, these kids have nice things, man. And you're just sitting there, man, we really got to make it. Like, and when your mom is telling you school's really the only way.
Like, that's the way to make it.
Yeah. Which it's not true, right?
Yeah, it's not. We know that now, but when you're back, even in the 90s, like, you don't know that stuff.
Yeah. So when that's all you're told as a kid, you start really listening to it, and you grind for it.
That's big, man. I didn't know that. So I guess that sets you up, because it just like gave you this the certain level of gratitude most people born here don't have. I mean, I know I didn't have it. I just thought I was like everyone else in school. So I was just like, when I worked hard, I got good grades, and that made me felt good. But then like high school, I fell off. So I see where you're coming from. So after high school, you graduate, and then you go to OSU. What's like freshman year like?
So you asked me a question earlier, did I do good in school all throughout high school? And the answer is yes. All from the time that I came here in the U.S. all the way through high school, I did really well in school because of that mentality. Now, at this point in my life, going into college, I was already Americanized at this point. So when I went in there, I just had a completely different mentality.
Like, I'm about to have fun.
Oh, man. I mean, it was also the phase, growing up in a household where my mom was pretty strict. She set some rules in the household where, when you're stepping into college, she was lenient enough to obviously kind of start letting her kid go and grow up, right? And so when I started having this bit of freedom, where, again, I'm stepping in with a job, I'm stepping in with, a car, and you're 17, stepping into a big campus like that. You're going to main campus OSU, which at that time, you feel like, oh, that's a big accomplishment. Not everybody can get into school.
Right.
And I felt good. I mean, I just had all the confidence in the world thinking I was going to take it over,
So
and
then
you step in there, and obviously everyone, and I'm not saying everyone, the majority of the kids that enter Ohio State obviously probably did relatively well in their high school days too. So it's kind of like stepping into the league, You're educationally speaking, you're in the big leagues now.
Yeah.
It's competition now.
No one's holding your hand.
No, and it's not even that. It's not just about getting good grades anymore. It's if I was going for nursing, which that's what I was trying to go for at that time, it's not just about getting good grades anymore. It's competition. It's dog eat dog. You really have to excel. It's no longer just meeting anymore. You have to excel, and that's the part where I got comfortable, and stepping into college. Feeling the way I did, and not having the maturity that I kind of grew into after that. I fell off with my grades, man. Stepping into college, I went in there thinking that I could just do what I was doing in high school, which was, as long as I get my homework completed and get some B's and A's, I'm good, which is what I did. But to be competitive, with other students, you had to excel. And on top of that, I mean, I probably got too laxed because, I went to a school that it was a Columbus public school. But it was one of the better schools in the district. But when you step into college, it's very hands free, right? When you're in high school, your teacher tells you when stuff is due.
And they catch you before you fall too deep.
Yep, they catch you, right? Essentially, they whatever they do, there's something catching you. In college, you have to find that out yourself. It's not until the quarter ends that you find out, oh, I didn't know, unless you've been checking the whole time.
So when did you find out?
I found out when, probably, man, it hit me. This is the craziest thing. I probably went almost, like, at the time at Ohio State, they were in quarters, which, you take certain number of classes per quarter, and there's like 4 quarters in a year. And they switched over to semesters like a couple years after that, and I don't know where they're at now, but this was back in 2011. After the first quarter, I remember like mid first quarter, we were doing midterms, which is kind of like the middle of the quarter testing, right? And this is how I knew I was messing up. I walked into class, take out my laptop, ready to take notes, and everyone's just sitting there like this, no laptops getting pulled out. And I'm looking around, what's going on? And I asked, I asked the guy next to me, hey, why isn't anyone taking the laptops out? And he goes, what are you talking about, dude? It's midterms. That feeling of hope, snap. It's the test day.
That's how much you weren't paying attention.
That's exactly my point. That's exactly my point. And then I took the midterm, and I'm just like, oh, I didn't study for none of this. And thinking that, a lot of the stuff that I got through in high school, I was able to get through because I was memorizing things, and I just had better memory and stuff. But this is a different kind of test. It requires you to actually understand the material, not just memorize it.
Right.
So it's no longer just what I would call definition-based questions where you know the definition of something and then you fill in the answer.
Okay.
It's application-based. You have to know the concept and then be able to apply it. Yeah.
So after that happened, you get through that first quarter. What is life like? You bomb it, you do good? What happened?
I bombed it, man. I remember first quarter, I think my GPA was like a 2.6, which was the lowest I've ever received on a GPA ever. I averaged maybe anywhere between a 3.7 and above in high school. Yeah.
I was just talking to Sin about this earlier. I was like, I didn't even know there was anything above a 4.0.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep, you can if you take certain classes.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I don't remember what rank. I mean, we did rankings in our high school, and I was ranked pretty high when it came to where I laid with the class.
Right.
But
so did that hit your ego, or?
Honestly, at that time, it was confusing because I've never not been good in school. And
how'd you deal with it?
See, here, I took it pretty hard. It was the first time I was nervous about school because I never really was nervous about school.
Yeah.
If something came up that anything I had to do with school, it was just like, oh, I can do this, whatever.
Yeah.
This type of education requires you to be very independent and requires you to grow up fast. It almost feels like the real world, right?
Right.
It is in a sense, right?
Yeah.
When you step out of high school, technically no one's really holding your hand anymore. I mean, I'm not saying that colleges are there just to take your money, but they're for-profit institutions. They're not gonna hold your hand, man.
Right.
They're just gonna, we're gonna give you the material, and it's up to you
to do the work
and pay attention. It is what it is. Whatever happens, happens. And I wasn't used to that, and I don't think I realized that until I started failing.
So did you start paying attention after that, or?
I tried.
Okay.
But I didn't know the strategy yet at that time of how to be a grown-up about it and start paying attention because, again, I'm not saying the teachers had to hold my hand throughout high school, but it was way more structured and you knew exactly,
They told you what step 2 was after step 1. And
exactly. They tell you, hey, put this in your planner. Put this in your planner. They tell you to put that in your planner, right?
Right.
This time you decide if you want to put it on a planner. I guess that's the analogy that I'm going to use. I'm not saying that had to be the case, but nothing was, instructed to you and spelled out for you. That's essentially what it was.
Right.
I was used to having things spelled out. And I think that's one of the major flaws. And I don't know if the system is still like that today with the educational system is it gets spelled out, I think, in the beginning. And what they spell out doesn't really help you once you're out in the real world.
Right. Because you never learned how to do it yourself. So what is, you made it sophomore year or you didn't?
So I did make it to sophomore year.
Okay. What is that like?
It was after I continued to be terrible. So outside of school, I was also in a phase where I just wanted to have fun.
Okay.
And I
feel like, most 18-year-olds can relate, so.
Yeah. So, just fun. Everything that has to do around that age, I mean, I was kicking it.
Yeah. Going out to bars?
Not bars, I wasn't old enough, but I mean,
doing that kind of activity?
Yeah, stuff like that. I mean,
Okay.
I had friends that, hey, you'd pass your card in the back of the line and you'd get in, whatever, whatever you do. So just hanging out, man. And I think there was a lot of distractions that my focus essentially just wasn't in school all the way, even though I claimed in myself and others that I was claiming that I'm focused in school and that's what I'm focused on right now. But really, my actions wasn't speaking that.
Like you were just going through the motions, but you weren't like in it. Like you weren't like, I'm going to graduate this year and I'm going to do this today. Or
I was kind of taking it day by day. Like
I'm going to just go to class, see what's up. Come out, get out of class, kick it.
And whenever the quarter ends, that's when I'll figure out whatever classes I need next. And that was my mentality at that time.
And you were passing classes or you weren't?
Some classes I was, some classes I wasn't.
Okay.
Depending on what it was. The reason being, some classes are easier than others, essentially, right? So you can have, I could have a class that was like, I don't know, some general education, music class, which I remember taking. That was super easy. But then you can have, Chem 101 or Chem 102, which requires you to really understand chemistry. I mean, that's a whole different
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Sophomore in college. So what's going on now?
So at that point, around sophomore year, after that year, I actually dropped out of Ohio State.
Okay.
It was a pretty heavy feeling.
So this was halfway through sophomore year?
No, man. I finished through the second year.
Okay.
But my GPA dropped below standards of continuing to receive the grants and
what is that
loans.
above? What is that requirement, or?
It was I want to say, dude, it was a low requirement and I still didn't even meet it. I want to say it is maybe 2.0 and I was below that maybe.
Okay.
Or maybe it was a 2.5 and I was below 2.5.
Okay.
It was somewhere between 2.0 and 2.5. I can't recall. But, I mean, it was bad. I wasn't focused. So I lost things that was essentially funding my collegiate career at that point in time. And so I stopped going to college.
Damn. So what happens now? Everything's cool though with you, or?
So it was a pretty heavy feeling because I wasn't used to not going to school. Your whole life you're in school.
Right.
I told you about how my mom kept instilling school. So what now? So this was around the time, this was probably around 2013.
Okay.
Dropped out of college, and this is essentially what I would call my realization period of I gotta grow up.
Why is that? Just cause of college?
Nah, man. Around that time, I was, I wasn't making much. So I think the last time we talked, I was doing the Ohio State gig back in high school. I actually ended up getting a waitering job when I went into college at a Steak and Shake at Easton. I was working there for almost 3 years, if not 3 years. So those 3 years, 3 years that I was, I was in college for 2 years, and then for 3 years I was at Steak and Shake waitering, and I was going back and forth at different Steak and Shakes around town, and picking up a lot of hours.
But I mean, I don't know about Steak and Shake, but I know most waiters make decent money, right?
Yeah, it was for the time. I was making good money for that age and for what I was doing, because I was picking up hours. The volume of people that was coming out of Easton really was, the deal breaker for, me liking that job, and the fact that it was just straight cash. Obviously, you have to report out on your taxes and stuff like that, but for that time, it was good money. I was still living, under my mom's roof at the time, so it's not like I had my own rent to pay, but I put in the bills for the house and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, right after dropping out of college, I was essentially a waiter, but it was also around that time my mom had moved out of state, and so that's when I started living on my own and had a couple roommates around 2013, 2014. So I think that's when it hit me, when I started paying attention to finances, because at that point I had moved out of my mom's house, and now
you have to track something, like.
Yeah, well, you have to realize first when you're starting to go under, right? Which I probably was already going under before that, but never really even realized it. I mean, I was, because I was taking out loans for college too, right?
So you were taking loans out for college, and then that was your only debt?
Well, I think I was using credit cards too for whatever reason. I don't know.
Okay, during college or?
I think so. Yeah. I honestly, I wasn't paying attention to finances. Essentially,
Yeah.
It was,
so it was just swiping and swiping.
Whatever it was, man, having a good time, whatever, right? Taking out loans. It's like a spell for disaster for finances.
So what was that debt looking like now?
I don't have a hard number because I don't remember. I just remember when I came to realize when I looked at my bank account and I was in the negatives, right? And I was still a waiter at Steak and Shake, and I looked and I said, how am I negative? It's because I never paid attention to what was coming in and what was coming out. And when I realized that, that's when I said, okay, let me sit down and look at all my bills. And that's the first time ever that I looked at my bills for rent, phone bill, a car note, minimum payment for credit card, excuse me. And then I don't think I didn't have to pay for a minimum payment for loans yet because there's like a 6-month
grace period or something.
Exactly.
Like that? Okay.
So whatever it equated to, I was going in the negatives based on the money that I was making.
Yeah.
And I was still making whatever money. It varied because I was waitering, right? And honestly, the hours that I was working, it wasn't even full time, man. I was only working maybe 30 hours a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's life like now? I mean, you just got some student loan debt, that's it, and you're good, and you're just chilling, you're not in college anymore?
So as of today, I would say I'm pretty proud to say that I'm completely debt free.
How much did you end up accumulating over that time?
So during that time, from that time all the way to the time that I actually went back into college, and this time I was focused,
right?
And I actually graduated. I double majored and graduated. Yep, in 2017. So I double majored in business management and leadership and management. Graduated from Franklin University. From that point all the way to 2017, accumulated debt combined with student debt, credit card, and car loans put together, I was probably around $55,000.
Dang.
Yeah, from the time that I got out of high school all the way to 2017. So in a span of 6 years, I accumulated $55,000 worth of debt.
So this is a mix of consumer debt, auto loan, and student loans, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So how long between that point and you paying it off?
So from $55,000 in 2017 to October of this year. So you're looking at about 4 years, $55,000.
And you eliminated all that?
Eliminated all of it.
Dang.
Yep.
So what happened between those 4 years? Let's break that down, because I think the people would benefit, an amazing amount. Like, I think exponentially, this could help a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it's good for me to elaborate, I guess, what transitioned me into that mentality of knocking out that debt, because, for a while, I wasn't making good money. When I realized I needed a real job, that's, around that time, I actually, I went into working for the company I work for now, which is, a claims management company. And I started at the bottom, being a temp. And when I realized, okay, I'm a college dropout, I don't know what I want to do with my life. And during that realization period of, from, 2013 all the way to 2014, those couple years, I had to think, okay, I need to do something about my life, man. I don't know what direction I'm going. I need to start really thinking about finances. I need to start thinking of goals and setting goals, because I don't know what I want. I'm a little lost, my mom doesn't live here anymore. She's out of state. I gotta figure something out. So I think that's what drove me into really doing a deep self dive. Like, what do I want to do? What are some values that I need to start sticking to when it comes to goal setting, and coming up with things that will help me be successful, whatever success is at that time. So for me,
go ahead.
Yeah, for me, I think one of the biggest things that I realized was that, okay, first and foremost, I can't even pay my bills correctly, so I need more money.
Right.
I think that's like probably the basic need for a lot of people is you need the finances to support your necessities in life. Not your wants, but just your necessities.
Right.
Right? Okay, let me break that down. What are my bills? You list it out. And at some point when you're a grown up, you gotta do that at some point.
Yeah.
And now I don't know at what age that is.
I honestly, man, I know a lot of I don't know, but I know some people that do not, and I'm sure a lot of people don't budget correctly and money manage. So I guess that by itself, you just made a list of your expenses, everything you got to pay every month.
Yep, exactly. That first time you're just breaking it down and you realize, holy crap, I don't make enough to support what I got going on.
So how do you make more money? I mean, that's everyone's goal, right? Everyone's like, yeah, I got to make more money, but how did you do it?
So I was working for corporate America, right? Working for the company I work for now. So because I had to be realistic about it, that's the big piece, right? Because you can sit and think, oh, I want to do whatever you want to do, but you got to set realistic expectations, right? And my realistic expectation at that time was, well, there's opportunity in my current company for me to get a new role within the company.
They told you that, or you just figured that out?
Well, you work with so many different departments in what I do,
right?
That that they make more than you. So how do I get there?
True. Right.
Right. That was my thinking at that time.
Yeah, just work.
So I started talking to my supervisor. I said, hey, this is what I want to do. That's the job.
You were telling him like, this is how much I need to make, or how did you come about that?
I didn't know how much people were making over there. At that time, I was just.
But I mean, did you like hit him with a number like, I want to make this number, and I think maybe they make this number and this?
I just knew they made more, and that's all I cared about at that time.
Okay, got you.
So my supervisor told me, well, in order for you to do that, you need to work on, your organizational skills and this and that. I mean, I was a call center rep, man, and what I was trying to get into was essentially like the next level where you would be the person actually, managing the claims, actually reviewing and requiring problem-solving skills, analytical stuff, and being a call center rep, you're just in a structured environment where you're reading off scripts or whatever it is. I mean, it was like the bottom of the totem pole.
Right.
So never really had the opportunity to do that. So I told my supervisor at that time, I said, look, you need to give me work that's going to give me those skills. I don't care what work it is. I could be getting paid the same as of now, but I need those skills so that when I apply for that interview.
So you were hunting for those skills.
Yes. And it sounds crazy because I wasn't even asking for more money. It was me asking, give me the work so I can build the skills. So when I go for that interview, I can tell them I already did it.
You know what? That's a gem. Definitely don't let that one go over your head. So, getting a job for the skill that you'll develop. For example, you might be a car salesman, or maybe you might be detailing cars. Like detailing cars, you get better at, I guess, just a routine, right? And then being detail oriented. So you're developing that kind of skill. Or if you're a car salesman, you're developing how to talk to people, how to communicate with people, you're understanding sales. And I think a lot of people should just, if you haven't watched the last episode, you'll know why that's a very important skill to have. But okay, go ahead. So you're hunting for these skills, and he was giving you this work? He was giving you this work that was developing these skills that he told you needed to advance in this position?
Yeah, so it was actually a female supervisor. So she was like, okay, she started kind of just giving me more tasks outside of my scope of work.
Okay.
That did help me develop certain skills, not all of it, because it's not like, they can't necessarily give you the work that the next level is doing because that's outside of your pay grade.
Right.
So, but you can at least develop certain skills outside of the scope that you're doing. And the concept is really this, you don't get promoted by just doing what you're supposed to do within your current role. You get promoted because you're doing things outside of your scope and you have the capacity to do your current scope and more. That's how you get promoted, right? At least in corporate America, right?
Right.
If you're just doing what you're supposed to do, it doesn't really, it shows that you're efficient in your current role. That is your expectation, okay? Now, if you're able to do more than that capacity and you're also excelling at that extra scope that you're handling, that tells whoever you're reporting to, this person's ready. for that next step.
Okay. So is that how did you end up getting promoted then, or?
Yeah. Well, no. Let me backtrack. I actually applied for that next level role that I wanted like 4 times and got turned down like 3 times.
Dang.
Yeah. It wasn't until like the 4th time that I went for it that I finally got it. Yeah. And it was tough because I almost gave up. I felt like I wanted to quit. It was tough.
Okay, man. I can't even imagine. I don't know if I have, but I know what you mean. I've never applied to a job though and been turned down 3 times. Normally, if I apply to like something or a job like that, I get turned down. I'm just like, all right, well, what's next? I'm gonna pivot because that wasn't it. What made you think that, like after number 2 and after number 3, you're like, this is still the way to go?
It was just.
Was it the only option?
So it goes back to what I said to you earlier about the analogy of question 1 through 10. When I see a goal, I don't stop until I get there, man.
And I love it.
That's always been in me. So
okay.
I guess that's the same reason why I kept going for it. I said, okay, first time, didn't get it because their feedback, was essentially just you don't have enough experience. You need to put in more time. Second time, it was probably we felt like when you answered this question, it showed us that you're essentially not ready for it yet as of today. Whatever it was, I don't remember the feedback, but I just know time after time after time, I kept getting turned down.
I think that was a secret though, like that they told you, they gave you constructive criticism on what you're doing wrong and how you can do better next time.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people don't get that, or they just ignore it because they're so turned off by getting rejected.
Yeah.
Right? So, okay, now you increase your income. You're starting to make bigger payments into this debt, or how's that?
So at this point, I probably was breaking even with necessities and what I was making.
Oh, so finally your income matches your expenses.
Relatively. I had like very little room for leisure. Yeah.
Wait, this is after you're including your debt too, like debt payments and all that stuff? Or
yeah, minimum payment for debts. Yeah.
Okay, minimum payment. Okay, got you.
Yep, so I was paying minimum payment for debts at this point. And around this time, I knew I wanted to make more money. So, I approached it in a way where realistically, I can try to get this next job in my company because there's growth opportunities.
So then you immediately set the next goal?
I'm sorry?
You immediately set the next goal for the next position, or?
Yeah, oh yeah, man, I was hungry. I was like, okay, and I didn't set a time. I just went, okay, I'm gonna excel at this.
I'm just going to do it. Like,
I'm gonna do it, Yeah. But then around that time, something sparked in me. I said, man, I still felt the disappointment from failing school that I wanted to go back because, like I said, I gotta finish what I started.
Right.
Man, so I remember researching internally in my company and found out that they offered a benefit that would pay for business majors. I had no interest in a business major, but guess what? They paid for pretty much 50% of the tuition if it's a business major related, whatever.
That's dope.
Yeah. So I said, I'm gonna go for it. I don't even care. You're paying 50%. I can do this. That's literally how I felt at the time.
Yeah.
So I researched into the benefit, how do I receive it, etc. And so I went back to school. You
started off with, what, 2 years under your belt then, or?
Started off with 2 years under my belt going back into school, but it didn't count really because I was going for...
None of those credits mattered for the major you're going to?
Some, like the general courses that every major probably needs, but you pretty much had a restart button. Yeah.
Right.
So I started all the way over, but this time, normally it takes about 4 years to get your bachelor's degree, right?
Right.
Because I was so driven at this point in time, because I was broke, I was pretty hungry for
your back was against the wall.
Pretty much, I said, look, instead of taking, what most students would take 4 classes, I'm taking 6. So I took like 6 classes at a time while working full time.
And what is full time? Like, what's a full time number of classes?
At the time, so every college is different, right? With their schedules. The way, so I actually entered back into Columbus State, so it was a community college. So I didn't go back to Ohio State.
Okay.
I went into a community college because now I'm a little bit more aware with how much things cost.
Right.
So I was trying to be more calculated and okay, so if I only need my GECs, this and that and the other, I can just go to a community college first. you know,
knocked it out the way at a lower price.
At a lower price, and then go to a university of whatever my choice would be afterwards to get my bachelor's, and that's what really matters. If it's a piece of paper, right?
Right.
But you don't think that way when you're younger because you think of the
college life.
Right, exactly. The college life and the reputation of Ohio State. And
right, because you want to go to Ohio State because it's Ohio State. Like, where else would you want to go?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so that's genius. Getting them to pay for half, and then you're also cutting your half down by going to community college. So let's say, okay, after that you knock that out the way. You graduate from Franklin?
Yeah.
Okay, you graduate from Franklin. Do you feel like that degree helped you besides just your job advancement?
Yes, because outside of the job advancement, it taught me a lot of lessons for discipline.
Like consistency? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's no other way to get through school other than consistency and discipline.
Right.
Outside of that, I mean, I don't really know anything else on how you can get through school without those two things. You could be an average learner and maybe not be talented, but if you have the discipline to sit there and study, and if you have the consistency to make sure that you're continuing to be on schedule with whatever that schedule is,
right,
you will get through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, dang, it's a lot of good stuff in here, man. I hope they take a lot of stuff away from this. So, you do get your new job that you applied for after. Okay, so you advanced one time, right?
Yeah, so a lot of this stuff is overlapping at this point, man. As I'm growing in my career, I'm also going to school, getting after it. So my schedule was looking crazy, man, from like 2015 to 2017, or I'm sorry, 2014-ish to 2017. So
about 3 years?
About 3 years, I got my bachelor's degree and I double majored. So I took a crap ton of classes, and I didn't take breaks in summer. I went through summer school and everything, so I never stopped.
Round?
Year round.
What was your schedule looking like day to day?
Wake up at 5 in the morning, do homework from 6 in the morning to 8 in the morning, go to work until 6 p.m., go to night classes until 11 p.m., rinse, repeat from Monday through Fridays, weekends, study, homework, and that was it.
Bro, you are crazy.
Yeah.
How did you feel like you got through that? I know there's probably some people watching that are going through that or have gone through that and might have given up. Like, what would you say to yourself back then? Did you ever feel like you were going to quit?
I was such in a rhythm at that point that I probably wouldn't have quit because the momentum.
The middle to the end was a lot easier than the beginning.
The beginning was scary.
Okay.
The beginning was scary because I didn't know if I could finish.
Why? Just because it was so hard?
Yeah, I looked too far ahead.
Yeah, I mean that something's hard. That's hard. You're doing different work, but you're working like 12-hour days plus?
Yeah. So after the job advancement, I got another promotion after a couple years in that role. I became a supervisor.
So now you're managing people.
Yep, managing people, and then. I was still in college, and I was probably in my second 2.5 year mark, maybe 2 year mark of college. Really, I lost track because everything was such a blur.
Right.
So being a supervisor, I mean, I was salaried at this point. I don't know how many hours I was putting in, but I know I was waking up 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning in order to have time to do homework during the weekday, and then go to work, put in the work, and then get out, and then put in the work for school, and then rinse, repeat.
You weren't going out kicking it with anybody at this point.
I tried, man, but it was hard to find a balance. I mean, one of the sacrifices was social life and gym time and taking care of myself physically. So I had gained a lot of weight during that time too. So you give up a lot by doing that.
Okay. So you definitely it's a give and take with all that. So you graduate college. What's after that?
Graduated college. At this point, I had gotten another job advancement, became an operations manager, and essentially, got to a point where I was definitely making more than my necessities at this point. I was a little bit more calculated from all the lessons that I've learned. looked back and I looked at the overall picture. Okay, this is the income that I was making, and throughout that time frame, you know, I was making different. I was making a different salary every, couple years, just because I kept advancing in my career. All the extra money that I made, literally went to debt, man. So I didn't spend a single,
kept your expenses the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
So kept my expenses the same. I mean, yeah, of course I would, spend a little on myself, but no, I'm not gonna. I didn't go ball out like I probably would have a few years before that. I tackled debt heavily.
So as you got raises, you took those raises and put it into, and you lived the same lifestyle for
exactly. You have to
all
calculate
those raises.
That.
Okay.
Yep. You account for that. So because you're already in the hole. So when you start getting ahead, fill the hole up.
Right.
Before you start jumping ahead.
Yeah. Or else she's gonna fall back in.
Yeah.
That's a big level of discipline, and that's something I've noticed even in your training. Like, you started with me, what, 2019? Or no, 2020?
2020, January 2020.
Okay. Yeah, it's around the time I launched my business. So, like, officially launched it. But yeah, since then, you got hired one more time since then, right? That was your position you're at now?
I actually got promoted again 3 months ago.
Oh, okay.
Point. Yep. So, I mean, but again, I put in the time and work, and it wasn't just, given to me. I put in the work, and I make sure I put in the time for it.
For sure.
So, at this point, I have more than what I need. Since I was already aggressively paying debt off. With the extra income I was making with the previous positions, I got to a point where I paid off all my debt as of October of this year.
Congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
so big.
Thank you.
That's so big. So, well, I guess, let's take it to when you started training, because I've even, since I've known you, you've had a giant shift. So, 2020 January, what was that like for you? How were you feeling like?
I career-wise, graduating from school, felt very accomplished. But now, I needed another set of goals, because I'm thinking, okay, I don't want to get too comfortable. Which, at that time, I felt like I had, like I said, you give and take, because of all that time that I focused on school, work. Man,
you had like all this time in the world.
But now I was physically not fit.
I see what you mean.
was not taking care of myself in that manner, So now it's like, okay, so I took care of that, the stuff that I needed to take care of. Now let's focus on this area of my life. And I'm not saying that was the only area that I wanted to focus on, but now at this point.
But I mean, that's what you're focusing on right now.
Yeah.
And you didn't have like multiple things you were focusing on at this time. It was just like, I'm gonna just take care of myself right now. And
there were multiple things. So that was one of the major ones, which was my physical health. I wanted to get back into.
Did you make that a priority, or was it just kind of like on the back? Okay.
I needed that to be a priority, man, because I like I said, I feel like I don't think there's ever a finish line when it comes to fitness. I think it's something that it's got to be a lifestyle, right? Yeah. But then now I'm in a phase where I want to do something more now that I have the excess. And with that excess comes with a lot of responsibility.
Right.
Doesn't mean, oh, now I get to relax. That's not really how I think. It's more, okay, now you get in a phase where, okay, you knocked out your debt. Now your excess, you need to start making investments to get ahead. Yeah. And now you're, down the stretch, when you're a little ahead for yourself, you need to start getting ahead for everyone around you, including your, if you have kids or whatever, you need to start thinking ahead now.
Right.
Before, I was so focused on catching up, and I'm blessed to say I'm no longer trying to catch up anymore. Yeah. Now I'm focused on getting ahead and staying ahead, and maintaining staying ahead and never falling back again.
Yeah, man, I love that. I think that constant drive is one of the biggest things that I've seen in your training that has helped you multiply your skill. Like, remember starting out with you, everything was just tough, kind of catching on. I mean, you would say, right? Like, you feel like things came natural to you, trying to learn how to fight?
Oh, no, I was terrible. I thought I knew how to throw a punch. I didn't know how to throw anything, man. It was terrible. It was very demoralizing.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm telling y'all, like hundreds of reps. Like that's just how it is in this type of sport and in fight sports. And if you are a fighter, you know, it's hundreds of reps on the bags, like over months, thousands, like, and I think that consistency is the sole reason why he's like at the level where he's at now. I mean, what was your journey like, your fitness journey like since 2020, January 2020?
Oh man, to make a long story short, I went vegan for 3 months and lost 40 pounds in about 3 months.
All right, so you said 4 months, 3 months you went vegan?
Yeah, so as of January 2020 at this point, one of my priorities was to become a little bit more fit. Now, I'm not trying to get shredded. You know, I just wanted to, I was overweight from my height and size, and everything about me it didn't feel good. You know, I felt sluggish. Around this time, I was weighing at 195 pounds, which for my height, man, it's considered not good.
Yeah.
You know?
That was the heaviest you've been?
Oh, ever. You know, throughout majority of high school and college, you know, I kind of average, I think, what would be considered like a normal healthy weight for my height and everything. So I got up to a point where, you know, jeans wouldn't fit. I mean, I started going up and I started having to give up clothes that couldn't fit, whatever, man. And I said, and at one point, I thought I would never lose it, because I thought I would never have time to go to the gym because of all the things that I mentioned earlier. I said, man, but at this point I was like, oh, this is the chance for me to now have the time to do it.
Okay.
So from January 2020 all the way to around May of 2020, this was around when COVID kicked in. It was kind of a weird timing because there was nothing else to do but work out.
Right.
Well, not at the gym, but I was running like crazy, man.
Yeah,
that's all you
that.
could do. Gyms were closed, and you know that. I started training with you.
Yeah.
We trained for maybe a month and a half, almost 2 months, which, you know.
And then COVID hit.
And then COVID hit. Everything shut down.
Yeah.
And all I did was run and eat vegan. That's all I did.
Man, hey, I'm just glad you just kept training with me, because I was training people in my basement and I was like, just don't tell anybody, like, I don't want to get in trouble. But hilarious. I was like, everything I gave you to do though, you did it. And I was just like, man, like perfect client. But for sure, I think that's the biggest part. As a trainer now, I just see like how much, I'll tell people things one thing at a time. And then if they just can't do that one thing, then I just kind of understand where they're at. Mentally at least. Yeah,
I think you and I throughout that time, you know, you started your business around that time, and I was starting to learn a new skill that I've never even stepped into before.
Yeah, for sure, we were growing together.
We were growing together in so many different ways, man, and I think that's what I loved about not just the sport, but it was a new thing where you were learning, you know, you were learning things that you know, from a coaching standpoint.
Yeah.
You were developing those skills, and I was developing skills that I've, you know, never even thought that I would step into.
Yeah, just mastering yourself.
Yep, exactly.
And I guess just to top it off, what are the top 3 things you learned since just getting your body right and getting your health right?
Top 3 things that I learned, man.
Or even experiences you've had or impact or anything like that.
Okay. If I had to boil it down to 3 things, and I know I mentioned this multiple times during the podcast, man, stay consistent. I know that sounds pretty cliche to say, but it's a very difficult thing to do because life happens.
100%.
Life happens for everybody, man. But I guess number 2 would be don't make the excuse. You know, we can all make an excuse, and we all have an excuse. It's a real deal. Like, we all have excuses, but the deal is, you know, how are you going to respond to that? So my biggest thing is always, you know, it's not about how you react to something, it's how you respond to something. So
what's the difference to you?
Well, if a situation happens, obviously your first instinct is to, you know, feel a certain way, maybe emotionally or whatever, or think a certain way.
Right.
Whether that's, most of the time it's bad situations that
like someone cut you off, piss you off now you're mad.
Yeah. And you react.
And that's a reaction.
Yeah.
Versus a response is...
A response is more calculated.
Okay.
You know, a response is something where you take a couple steps back, breathe. And I know that's not always the case. Sometimes everything has to happen on the fly, whatever life hits, right?
Right.
But respond in a calculated way, because if you react, it's going to have consequences that you probably don't want if you're not thinking through it. I know that's very vague, but I mean, there's so many situations in life.
But I mean, I could see how that even started like in school and stuff, when things start like going bad, and then, or like things are not even going bad, or just getting hard, or just getting a little bit harder, and you just react, and you're like, I'm done with this.
Yep, you react.
You back away from the pressure, and you just tap out. But
So
yeah, I like that.
Responding versus reacting is a big thing.
Okay.
And I think that's a lot of, what most of us, that's part of why people quit with things, whatever it is, because you react to the current situation versus responding to it, which is a little bit more calculated, and you're thinking through it, and you're thinking through what is going to be the consequence of that next step if you do quit. Do you have something lined up afterwards, or whatever that is, or do you have another option B solution, and that's the difference between reaction and responding.
Okay. And one last thing, you're at this very good job now, and you have all your debt cleared out and everything, but is work the same, easier, or harder from when you started?
It's a good question.
At that company.
It definitely is more challenging, so that's at the surface. But
in what way?
In many ways, right? So as your scope expands with the job duties that you have, you were required to, at least in my role, you're overseeing multiple parties, teams, whatever it is. So the biggest challenge is going to be you're no longer an individual contributor, meaning you're not just looking out for yourself anymore. You are also accountable for everybody below you. And
their actions reflect on you.
Everything. So accountability is in a different level now. So not only am I accountable for my own decisions, but I'm also accountable for the decisions that they're making, because at the end of the day, I have to be able to lead them.
Yeah.
Okay. So so it's not about, the title itself says manager, but it doesn't mean you tell people what to do. You have to be a leader and be able to, and there's a definition, and we can go in a whole spiel about that. But leadership is the most important thing when it comes to my role, and that's the challenge.
And that was a skill you had to learn, right?
Develop and learn. But again, with college, even the concepts that you learn, I know it's just books and you're reading through it. I absorbed a lot of that, and I applied it, and I still apply it to this day.
And it helped you build that leadership quality?
Oh yeah. Man,
that's all we need. That's dope, man. Let's close it out. So y'all know this show is called Straight to the Bag, and to fighters, bag work is a necessity, and I don't know any gym where you cannot do bag work and fight. So I want y'all to take what you learned today and kind of apply it to your real life. Apply it to your life. What are you struggling with? Where are you at? Do you have a similar journey to Kirvy? And if you do, figure out what your next steps are and then execute, aka straight to the bag. So let them know where they can find you at, bro, if they have any questions or they're struggling with something and they want to hit you up and just talk to you.
For sure. So I have an Instagram. It's Kirvy, KIRVY_Dan, DAN. If you guys have any questions, feedback, definitely let me know. And I'm open to any questions that you guys have, and willing to help you guys through whatever you guys have. So just let me know.
Man, dope. All right, bro. Appreciate your time, man. Appreciate y'all listening.